During his first week in office, President Obama said at least one thing Israelis wanted to hear.
Let me be clear. America is committed to Israel's security, and we will always support Israel's right to defend itself.
Like the U.S., Israel will also have a new government after elections on February 10th. All of the candidates for prime minister are publicly praising Obama, but behind the scenes, there's concern his plans may weaken Israel's security. Yoram Ettinger is a former Israeli liaison to the U.S. Congress. He says that judging by Obama's advisors, the biggest difference between this and the Bush White House is that there will be talk with sponsors of terrorism rather than isolation. That could be one of the reasons why Robert Gates is still Defense Secretary.
And Secretary Gates does subscribe to the Baker report, which calls for a dialogue with Iran, dialogue with Syria, dialogue with radical anti-U.S. regime, which is consistent with Obama's ideology, totally inconsistent with Bush-Cheney.
Most of Obama's advisors also strongly oppose any U.S. or Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, which are Israel's greatest threat.
You cannot let people like that have nuclear weapons, and the United States should stand up on this issue.
Retired U.S. Air Force General Thomas McInerney says it's a mistake to talk with Iran's president. He has called for Israel to be wiped off the map and believes a world in chaos will lead to the coming of a Muslim Messiah.
You cannot deter that kind of mindset. And if anybody thinks they can, and if they think negotiations will work, I must assure you they are doomed to failure.
Some are also concerned that the new administration will push for the division of Jerusalem and the forcing of Jewish residents out of the West Bank. President Obama's first overseas call also raised eyebrows in Israel. It was to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. And this week, he gave his first formal television interview as president to the Muslim Al Arabiya network.
My job is to communicate to the American people that the Muslim world is filled with extraordinary people who simply want to live their lives and see their children live better lives. My job to the Muslim world is to communicate that the Americans are not your enemy.
Obama has shown support for the Saudi peace plan of 2002. It calls for Israel to return all of the territories taken in the 1967 Six-Day War in exchange for normalizing relations with the Arab world. That would mean forfeiting the most strategic defense positions in the land, including the Golan Heights. It also calls for the partitioning of Jerusalem and the return of millions of Palestinian refugees and their descendants to Israel.
In the Middle East neighborhood, that means suicidal lines.
Israel can also expect a push from Arab states and some in Europe to legitimize Hamas. The White House denies the president supports this.
They're a terrorist group. Hamas is bad as the Nazis. So why would you give them legitimacy? It's extraordinarily naive. And if he does, he'll rue the day he did it. I hope he doesn't.
The White House plans for Israel and the Middle East will be low-key and ceremonial until after next month's elections here. But the president has promised to be active in the pursuit of peace. And that could mean rougher times between the U.S. and Israel in the years ahead. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.